Donald Trump's tariff deadline has come and gone, and with no deal or extension in sight, taxes on Canadian goods will now increase to 35%.
Over 140,000 tons of Canadian potatoes have stopped coming to the U.S. in just 4 months. No announcement, no fight. They just disappeared. Why? Because on April 2nd, Washington slapped a 35% tariff on Canadian potatoes. Brilliant! Now a $22 bag costs $30. A plate of fries that used to be $3.50 is now $5.25. And while Americans are paying more for soggy fries, Canada's Prime Minister didn't argue. He flew to Asia, shook hands, and signed a $1.6 billion trade deal without even looking back. Warehouses are empty. Farmers are cutting back. Diners are shrinking portions. But here's the truth. The potatoes weren't blocked. They left quietly. Because when you slap your best trading partner with a massive tax and call it strategy, don't be surprised when even a potato says, no thanks. Let's not forget, before the fries hit the fan, this was one of the most stable trade flows in North America. In 2024 alone, Canada exported roughly 350,000 metric tons of potatoes to the U.S., enough to feed 17 million American households, mostly in the northern states, where winter lasts longer than campaign season. This wasn't just trade, it was ritual. Minnesota diners ran on PEI potatoes the way Congress runs on lobbyist coffee. For decades, the potato pipeline between Canada and the U.S. was as reliable as Tuesday night football. But then came the art of the tariff. And just like that, the guy in the big white house decided that taxing your best agricultural partner was somehow a power move. No tweets, no pressers, just a 35% tariff slapped on spuds like they were foreign threats. According to Agriculture Canada's July 2025 report, this led to a 41% drop in Canadian potato exports to the U.S. by Q2, a collapse not seen since the 1980s. So no, it wasn't a public breakup. It was worse. It was ghosting with a tax form. Of course, when you tax potatoes like they're luxury handbags, something's going to give. The U.S. government dropped a 35% import tariff on Canadian potatoes, fresh, frozen, seed, you name it. The official reasoning? Trade fairness. The actual effect? Higher prices, empty shelves, and soggy fries from Idaho. Let's talk math. A 25-ton shipment of frozen fries, previously valued at $32,000, now comes with $11,200 in extra taxes. That's a 35% increase on a food product Americans eat more than broccoli and Logic combined. According to USDA Food Pricing Index, July 2025, the average price of a serving of fries jumped from $3.50 to $5.25 in a single quarter. That's not inflation. That's sabotaging ketchup. And restaurants, they're swapping out high-quality PEI potatoes for cheaper domestic ones. Spoiler, they don't fry the same. Customers are complaining about limp texture, uneven color, and that strange chemical aftertaste that screams freedom fries. Meanwhile, mom-and-pop diners are quietly shrinking portions and rewriting menus because passing the full cost to customers means losing them. But here's the kicker. Nobody warned Canada. No bilateral talks, no coordinated timeline, just a unilateral wall of tariffs. And when the guy in the White House builds economic walls without warning, don't act surprised when your neighbors start using the side door. Because in this version of America First, even the potatoes are second-guessing their entry visa. When one side builds a tariff wall, the other side doesn't always fire back. Sometimes they just walk away and take their crops with them. Canadian processors like McCain and Cavendish, who once shipped thousands of frozen fry containers to the U.S. each month, have quietly scaled back contracts with farmers. No press release, just fewer trucks, shorter contracts, and empty cold storage units in Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, and Alberta. According to Statistics Canada July 2025 Farm Update, some mid-sized farms reported cutting their planting acreage by 15 to 25% this season, not due to drought or pests, but lack of demand from their largest buyer, America. Meanwhile, on this side of the border, the picture isn't prettier. U.S. importers faced with skyrocketing costs are switching to domestic potatoes, despite logistical issues and lower consistency. A report from the USDA Agricultural Outlook, July 2025, shows that restaurants in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan are reporting a 10 to 18% drop in potato product quality satisfaction, mostly due to uneven frying results and shorter shelf life. One regular at a diner in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, summed it up best. "I paid $5 for fries that tasted like wet cardboard. I used to come here twice a week. Now I bring my lunch." He's not alone. Across the Midwest, fast food joints are reporting a noticeable dip in foot traffic, not because of calorie counts, but because the fries just aren't right. "We didn't change suppliers by choice," said a franchise owner in Duluth. "We changed because our Canadian trucks stopped showing up. Customers noticed within a week, and they didn't come back." While big chains like McDonald's and Wendy's can negotiate bulk deals, smaller diners and cafeterias are bearing the brunt. One restaurant owner in Fargo told the Minneapolis Star, "We went from 3 plates of fries for $10 to barely 1.5. Our margins didn't shrink, they vanished." The ripple effect is real. From tractors and PEI sitting idle to confused teenagers at drive-thrus apologizing for the new fries, it's clear this isn't just about trade anymore. It's about how one policy decision signed in a quiet D.C. office can jam an entire food system on both sides of the border. While Washington played tough guy with the tariff stick, Ottawa reached for a calculator and then a map. Instead of retaliating with more tariffs or angry press conferences, Canada quietly restructured its potato economy. Processors began shifting inventory to domestic markets, farms downsized exports, retooled for 5 kg retail packs, and started supplying directly to grocery chains and co-ops. According to Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada July 2025 Food System Review, retail potato prices in Canada have remained steady at $4.50 to $4.99 per bag, avoiding the price shock seen in U.S. meat and grain products. Even more quietly, surplus potatoes were redirected to food banks and community kitchens. In New Brunswick and Manitoba, subsidies helped push more than 12,000 tons of excess crop into low-income food programs in Q2 alone, based on Food Banks Canada's July 2025 Impact Report. For a Canadian family, saving just $5 a week on local potatoes means more room for essentials, milk, eggs, bread. In today's economy, that isn't a small thing. That's dinner. And all of it done without drama, without threats, and most importantly, without pretending that bullying your neighbor builds respect. When your biggest customer taxes your product like it's poison, the smart move isn't to beg them back. It's to find better customers. And that's exactly what Canada's doing. Since late 2024, Ottawa has been quietly expanding agricultural trade beyond its high-maintenance neighbor. According to Global Affairs Canada July 2025 Trade Pivot Brief, Canada signed a $1.6 billion agri-deal this spring with Japan, South Korea, and Indonesia, focusing on processed potatoes and premium frozen goods. The results are real. PEI exported $8 million worth of fresh potatoes to Indonesia in 2024, and shipments are rising. Thailand has now become Canada's largest non-U.S. importer, taking in over $4 million in fresh and seed potatoes, while Caribbean nations like Trinidad and Panama each purchased more than $13 million. Even better, these aren't just sales, they're building a new model. In Charlottetown, a freezing facility signed a deal with a Japanese distributor and added a new processing line, creating 45 full-time jobs and increasing local purchases by 15%. This includes ugly grade 2 potatoes that used to be livestock feed. The goal isn't revenge, it's resilience. because Canada learned something from this tariff tantrum. If you rely on one market that throws a fit every election cycle, you're not in business, you're in hostage negotiations. And right now, Asia isn't just opening doors, it's handing Canada a spare key. But even with Asia handing over the keys, Canada still has to jiggle the lock. The pivot sounds great on paper, but real-world logistics don't bend that easily. According to Agriculture Canada July 2025 Export Logistics Review, Canada still lacks direct cold chain routes to major Asian hubs. Shipping to Tokyo or Jakarta costs 20 to 35% more per ton than trucking to Buffalo. Then there's South Korea, which, despite having a free trade agreement, still hasn't approved fresh Canadian potatoes due to quarantine restrictions. So for now, fries are in, but raw spuds are still waiting at customs. And while companies like McCain can afford to build supply chains from scratch, smaller farms are getting left behind. Without direct access to buyers, they remain tied to big processors who decide which farm ships where and at what price. So, yes, Canada is moving on, but like any rebound, it's complicated. New markets take time, infrastructure takes investment, and not every farmer has the luxury of patience or a government trade team on speed dial. Because diversifying sounds smart until you realize you're the small guy waiting for the boat that only sails once a month. In the end, no one declared a trade war, no speeches, no boycotts, just tariffs and retreat. By July 2025, the World Monitor recorded a 41.7% drop in Canadian potato exports to the U.S., while U.S. potato imports overall fell by 19%, mostly due to what economists politely call policy-induced friction. But this isn't just about exports or fries. It's about trust. Because Canada didn't slam the door, they just stopped knocking. And that's the part no one in Washington seems ready to say out loud. When your closest trading partner walks away without a fight, maybe it's not defiance, maybe it's exhaustion. As USPA's July 2025 Policy Impact Brief put it, short-term protectionism may yield political optics, but long-term reputational damage is harder to fix. It's hard to blame them. After all, if you've been told for years that you're a trusted partner, but the moment politics get messy, you're taxed like a threat, well, eventually you stop showing up, because trust doesn't need to be broken loudly. Sometimes it just fades between warehouses left dark, deals signed elsewhere, and fries that don't taste like they used to. So what do you think? Will Canada ever return to the table? Or was this the quietest breakup in North American trade history? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next time someone taxes trust and calls it